Good morning. This is Evia Moore, and this is UpCulture, Hidden Lessons in Your Pocket, a series where I talk about a whole host of strategies and tactics that have been with us for centuries that people have used to uplift and elevate their lives in many ways. Those strategies and tactics are just as valuable and just as workable today as they've always been, but they're just hidden from sight. And you all know me, or as we say down south, y'all know me. I'm all about doing things that work, because we don't have enough time in this life to stumble around and experiment, especially when it comes to the very important things. Once again, this series is dedicated to those in my lineage for upcoming generations, because I know that they will listen, but I'm putting it out here for anyone and everyone. So use what you can and then throw the rest into the round file, also known as the trash can. This is lesson 5, genders. Have things really changed? Well, only on the surface. If you've listened to previous lessons in this series, you know that I am heavily into anthropology, cultural anthropology, and that's been my academic background and a lifelong interest. And people with the cultural anthropology frame of mind look at life over cultures, over space, and over time, for centuries and generations. And for the last 6 months, I have been surveying a lot of opinions on social media coming from all sorts of experts and just general people about the gender issues. And I've come to the conclusion that there is massive confusion out there, because many people think that there have been changes in gender expectations, what men expect, what women expect from the opposite gender. And the fact is that nothing has changed. But many of the millennials think that things have changed. And the millennials are, as we know, those people who are about 25 years old now, all the way up to maybe about 36 or 37 or so. And they are the prime group that are in the time of their lives when they are meeting people with the thought in mind of maybe getting married and having children, and driving many of the conversations about that in this particular time. And they are confused because they're thinking that things have changed when things haven't really changed. Men and women primarily, and mainly, not just primarily, but mainly, have the same expectations of each other as they have always had. And keep in mind, I'm looking at things with a long lens across cultures, over space, and over time. So let's look at those general areas that people have focused on to uplift or elevate their lives, like planning and preparing for the future, getting skills and education in order to do a very good job at that, marriage, having children, saving and investing money. Let's face it, in order to do all of those things reasonably well, there had to have been smooth enough interactions between the genders. So in any situation where there is constant friction between the genders and just massive confusion and low intensity conflict between the genders, which is what we're dealing with now in certain pockets of society, even more so than in the general society, then there is going to be a lot of failure in all of those areas. So if we zero in on why there are these breakdowns in the smoother interactions between men and women these days as opposed to what used to be over the generations, it's because the culture has given men and women the impression that things have changed. Many men are convinced that it's feminism that is causing these cracks and these breakdowns and failures in these relationships between men and women. So a lot of men are angry and resentful and just confused about some of these things. At the same time, a lot of women believe that feminism has brought about more fairness for women compared to the lives of their mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and on back through the generations. Now, I just want to say here that I am a common sense feminist, and I'll be talking a lot more about what that means throughout this series. But in order to clarify what's happening better, I'm going to get even more granular here. I'm going to just zero in like I'm zooming in on a grain of sand about one of the major arguments that's raging now between men and women. A lot of men believe that since women are making more money these days, women are working, women have thriving careers, women are much better educated and are therefore able to make more money and bring home more money, and in some cases even more so than their husbands or their partners, whether they're married or not. The men believe that the women should pay an equal share of the bills. Some men believe that. They also, if they're just dating even, some men believe that women should sometimes pay for the meal, or women should just pay for various expenses in the relationship or in their family lives. Whereas down deep inside, a lot of women don't think that way, and it doesn't matter how much money they make. Now, some women are doing that. They are picking up more of the expenses. They are taking men out to dinner. They are buying things for men. But the men, whether they realize it or not, are going to pay a high price for that, because down deep inside, I would say roughly 95% of women still believe that men are supposed to do the heavy lifting when it comes to paying the household expenses, the dating expenses, or just the expenses in general. Because if we go back, way back across the generations, this was the expectation. Even though society has changed in terms of giving women more access to money and such, women primarily value men who provide and protect. Women respect those men more. They appreciate those men more than men who don't provide and protect. And once again, it doesn't matter how much money the woman has. Naturally, many men think that this is very unfair and very selfish of women to expect for them to do this heavy lifting if the women are bringing home just as much money or more money than them. But the women still primarily feel that way. Likewise, the same men who resent women for having that expectation of them still expect for these women to work 40, 50 hours a week, bring home those big fat paychecks so that they can live a more comfortable life with less financial pressure on the men. But the men still expect for the women to maintain a cute figure, to be just as pleasant in her interactions with them, have just as much energy for them in all kinds of ways. And we know one of the main ways that men expect for women to have a lot of energy, they expect for those women to maintain their appearance and be bubbly and just as likable and flirtatious as maybe they were in the very beginning. And so if we go back to the beginning of time, once again, this is where this comes from, because when men brought home the bacon, the women had been waiting back at the home sites when the men would come in after having hunted and brought home the meat. And the women, since they were around the home site helping to maintain things and just sharing all the responsibilities with other women, the women had more energy to cater to the men. They were happy to see the men, and so they weren't tired and worn out. A lot of women these days resent men who think that they should have all of this energy and that they should have the time after working 40 and 50 hours a week. So this drives a lot of conflict because, see, neither gender has changed. Not really, not beneath the surface. Yet they have these different expectations of each other that society is causing them to have. Therefore, many women and men are not really settled in their relationship with each other. And in some instances, when these men and women encounter other people outside their marriage who they believe will be able to meet those expectations, there is a tendency for both of those, both men and women, to want to stray, because those expectations that have been passed down through generations are still there. And when expectations are not met, people become disappointed and angry. Now, I'll be talking about this particular situation throughout this series because there are a number of ways that this situation could be addressed in a satisfactory way. But given the breakdown of the culture in the just general American society, and even more so in certain pockets of American society, what is going to happen is that there will be further breakdown because it's not being addressed in any sensible way. Nothing has changed, not beneath the surface. But if we look at some of the more recent immigrant groups that have come to this country, they are still focusing on those ways of elevating themselves, preparing and planning for the future, getting the education and skills at the time in their lives when it's most appropriate to do that. Then they are getting married. They are having children. They are focusing on parenting and raising their children well. They are saving and investing money or starting businesses. And they also enjoy smoother gender interactions because this is fostered by their cultures. So I'll be focusing a lot more on this in this series because I definitely want those in my lineage to focus on this because nothing is going to change. And so they might as well focus on what is going to make all the difference in terms of them elevating their lives. And hopefully some of you will too. In the next episode, I am going to share with you some of the strategies and tactics that I've used in my own marriages. You know, I've been married twice, and both of my marriages have been fulfilling marriages, and that applies to both sides, me and my husband's, and they have publicly stated this. And even though I did get a divorce from my first husband, we still enjoy a very smooth relationship, and both of us went on to marry again because we like being married. Neither of us left the marriage bitter and resigned to remain single. Oh no, we immediately kept all of our options open so that we could meet other compatible people with whom we could enter into a fulfilling marriage once again. So there are strategies and tactics that can be used to smoothen the interaction. So I'm wrapping this episode up here. Please stop at my site, blackfemaleinterracialmarriage.com or eviamoore.com. Some people enjoy reading the content there, as proven by the millions of views that my site, Black Female Interracial Marriage, has received over the past years. So this is Evia saying goodbye for now. Until next time, UpCulture always.